Millionaire shocked. When Hotel Maid spoke Dutch, what he did next will shock you. Comment below from which city you're watching and hit the subscriber button if you like the video. He thought he had seen it all. Billion-dollar deals, 5-star hotels, private jets. Nothing could shock him anymore. That's what he told himself, at least. Until she spoke. The hotel lobby was pristine, polished floors reflecting the grand chandeliers above. Every detail screamed wealth, control, and order. And yet, amidst the gleaming perfection, something happened that shook the very foundation of his carefully curated world. She was just a maid, or so he thought. A woman quietly moving through the halls, dusting, arranging, making herself invisible in a place built for the elite. Her uniform was crisp, her movements polite, almost mechanical. But when she looked at him, there was a spark in her eyes, a quiet intelligence he hadn't expected, one that didn't belong in the margins where he was used to seeing people like her. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, smooth, almost melodic. And it wasn't English. It was Dutch. And the words, though simple, carried authority, wit, and a confidence that stunned him. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink. The air itself shifted. Every ounce of arrogance he carried into that lobby seemed to melt away, replaced with an unfamiliar feeling. Discomfort. He blinked. He had dealt with powerful CEOs, diplomats, celebrities. He had commanded rooms, closed impossible deals, walked through life believing his money and status were untouchable. And yet, in the presence of this one woman, someone he had assumed was beneath him, he felt nothing he had ever felt before. It wasn't just the language. It was the way she carried herself, the subtle defiance in her posture, the quiet fire in her expression. She didn't flinch under his gaze. She didn't try to impress him. She simply existed, and for the first time in years, he was forced to confront something he had ignored. His own assumptions, his own biases, the invisible walls he had built around the world he thought he controlled. And then came the moment that changed everything. He spoke, testing, mocking, trying to regain the control that had been stripped from him in seconds. But she responded, not with fear, not with submission, but with truth. Words sharp, precise, piercing through the veneer of his wealth, cutting to the core of who he thought he was. The other guests noticed the tension. Staff froze mid-step. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The encounter was brief. Yet in those minutes, a silent war had begun. One that challenged power, privilege, and the very idea of superiority. One that forced a billionaire to question the world he had built and the people he had looked down upon. And as he watched her walk away, unshaken, leaving him in that grand lobby with his thoughts racing and his pride bruised, a single, terrifying question lodged in his mind. Who really holds the power when society's rules are upended by courage, dignity, and the refusal to be invisible? He had no answer. Not yet. But what he would do next, what he would choose in the face of someone who refused to bow, would shock everyone. The morning sunlight spilled across the sleek penthouse, painting the marble floors in gold. He moved through the space with practiced ease. Marcus Carter, 32, black, a self-made billionaire whose empire stretched across finance, real estate, and tech. To the world, he had everything: power, wealth, influence. But beneath the tailored suits and confident stride, there was a restlessness he couldn't shake. Life had been built on control, numbers, and deals, but it had never been about people. Not until her. Her name was Isabella Hayes, 29, white, a rising star in the art world, curator of one of the city's most prestigious galleries. She had a quiet elegance about her, a gentle warmth in her gaze that drew people in without demanding attention. She loved color, light, and stories that could be told through a single brushstroke. She believed in beauty, in possibility, in connection. And she carried a deep empathy that often left her vulnerable in a world more concerned with status than truth. Their lives had been separate, running parallel, until a chance encounter in a boutique hotel changed everything. Marcus had checked into a luxury suite for a business retreat. Isabella had been contracted to curate an exclusive art installation for the hotel. Their first interaction was brief. He noticed her accent, a trace of European elegance, and the confidence with which she handled the chaos of a bustling hotel floor. She noticed him, of course, because someone like him always commanded attention, but there was something else in his eyes, something beneath the surface that she couldn't quite place. Outside of that meeting, their worlds were different but oddly similar. Marcus spent his days running a sprawling corporation, yet he always made time for quiet reflection. Long walks on his private terrace, evenings poring over art he had collected but rarely shared. Isabella moved through galleries, lecture halls, and studios, balancing the practical pressures of her career with her unyielding passion for the arts. Both were ambitious, disciplined, and accustomed to admiration, but both were lonely in ways money and recognition couldn't fill. Their connection began quietly. Marcus would send small notes through the hotel concierge, inquiries about the art pieces Isabella was curating. She would respond with polite professionalism, never imagining that these exchanges would grow into something far more personal, far more intimate. They discovered shared passions, classical music, European art, literature that asked the same questions about identity, privilege, and power. Each conversation left them unsettled, as if a new world had quietly opened in front of them. But the world outside those moments wasn't quiet at all. Luxury and prestige, Marcus knew, were shields, but shields only worked so long. There were subtle signs, glances from hotel guests, whispered remarks from colleagues, even a few pointed questions from his board members. Isabella noticed it, too. The raised eyebrows when she spoke about attending private events with him, the subtle unease of her peers when she mentioned his name. The warning signs were small, easily ignored, but they hinted at a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. And so they lived in a delicate balance, two people drawn together by curiosity, mutual respect, and undeniable attraction, aware that the deeper their connection grew, the more visible it became. The quiet moments, the shared lunches, the late-night calls, the stolen glances across hotel lobbies, were filled with joy, but also with the unspoken knowledge that the world wasn't ready for them. Every interaction carried risk. Every public smile could be questioned. Every gesture of closeness could provoke scrutiny. Yet they couldn't stop themselves. The pull between them was stronger than fear, stronger than caution, stronger than the unspoken rules society tried to enforce. And as they laughed quietly over a shared joke one evening, standing on the terrace above the city lights, neither realized just how quickly admiration and curiosity could turn into something far darker. How quickly whispers of prejudice, judgment, and open disdain could challenge everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and power. The first cracks in their world were subtle, but inevitable, and they were about to collide with a society that had little patience for love that didn't fit its mold. Millionaire shocked when Hotel Maid spoke Dutch. What he did next will shock you. At first, the discomfort was subtle. Marcus and Isabella noticed it in small ways, whispered comments in hotel corridors, half smiles that didn't reach certain guests' eyes, colleagues who avoided eye contact during meetings. The world they had carefully navigated began to shift, revealing an undercurrent of judgment they had long ignored. Then came the first direct confrontation. It was an exclusive charity gala at the hotel, an event Marcus had helped sponsor. Isabella arrived early to check the layout, unaware that the entire staff and guest list were subtly observing her. Marcus joined her, perfectly composed, but she could feel the prickling tension as glances followed them. A wealthy socialite approached, her lips tight, her eyes flicking between them. "Is that really him?" she whispered, though loud enough for others nearby to hear. "And she's with him?" Laughter bubbled from the group, restrained but cruel, sending a chill through Isabella's chest. Marcus's jaw tightened, his hand brushing her elbow gently in a silent warning not to react. Moments later, a waiter deliberately spilled a drink near them, as if testing the boundaries. Isabella's heart raced, furious, yet she remained calm, refusing to let him see the tremor in her hands. Marcus's eyes scanned the room, alert, protective, but he too realized something profound. Their love, their choices, had become a spectacle. Word traveled fast. In the following days, subtle attacks escalated into open humiliation. Hotel guests commented on their appearance. The staff whispered as they passed, and Isabella noticed that invitations she once received for gallery previews stopped arriving. Marcus encountered resistance at board meetings, with executives questioning decisions, his authority challenged in ways he had never experienced. The breaking point came during a hotel floor inspection. Marcus and Isabella walked together through the polished hallways, discussing an upcoming gallery event. Behind them, a group of staff exchanged knowing glances. One woman approached, her smile fake, her words sharp. "Quite bold of you to be here together," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Some of us have standards." Isabella's cheeks flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Marcus turned slowly, facing her, his eyes dark with controlled fury. "We're not asking for permission," he said quietly, enough for the woman to hear, yet calm enough to prevent an immediate confrontation. But the tension was building, like a storm waiting to break. Then came the public incident that would ignite the full force of scrutiny. During a high-profile business lunch in the hotel's rooftop restaurant, Marcus and Isabella were seated near the center, the city sprawling behind them. A prominent investor, known for his influence and sharp tongue, leaned over to a colleague. His voice was loud enough to carry, "Does she even belong at a table like this?" With him, laughter followed, soft but cutting, spreading like wildfire. Isabella's hands tightened around her napkin, her pulse quickening. Marcus's face remained stoic, but inside, he seethed. He could feel every eye on them, every whisper magnifying the humiliation. Isabella took a deep breath. "Ignore them," she said softly, but her voice trembled. "It's not worth it." Marcus shook his head, his fingers brushing hers under the table. "It is," he said firmly. "They need to see we're not backing down." The confrontation escalated further when a waiter, subtly influenced by the investor, delivered Isabella's meal cold, while Marcus's remained perfect. Isabella's face burned, not just from hunger, but from the injustice and deliberate insult. Marcus leaned close, whispering, "One more test. We endure. One more moment." By the end of the lunch, the whispers had spread through the hotel. Guests stared openly. Some whispered behind their hands. Some took photos. Marcus and Isabella left the rooftop quietly, their hands entwined, hearts pounding. Not just from the humiliation, but from the realization that the world outside their private bubble would never make this easy. As they exited, Marcus glanced back at the crowd, eyes steely. Isabella followed his gaze, her own reflection in the glass, showing determination replacing fear. How long could they endure before someone, somewhere, decided to push them too far? The answer loomed ominously, unspoken, yet unmistakable. The storm was coming, and it would not wait for their comfort or preparation. The night of the hotel gala had arrived, the event that promised sophistication, elegance, and a display of wealth that few could rival. Marcus and Isabella arrived hand in hand, prepared to enjoy a brief moment of respite in a world that had made their love a target. The grand chandelier bathed the room in soft golden light. Guests mingled, glasses clinked, and a string quartet played in the corner. Yet beneath the opulence, tension simmered, unnoticed by most, but not by those who had been watching. From the moment they stepped onto the floor, the stares began. Sharp, lingering, loaded with judgment. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Isabella's fingers trembled slightly in his, but she refused to pull away. They had survived whispers, cold stares, and small humiliations. But this night would test them in ways neither had expected. It started subtly. A woman in a designer gown whispered behind a hand, her eyes darting between the couple and her companions. "Can you believe she's here? With him?" The words weren't loud, but enough to ripple through the nearby tables. Then a man, wealthy, influential guest, leaned toward a friend, his voice carrying over the soft music. "This is disgraceful. She should know her place." Marcus's jaw tightened. Isabella's lips pressed together, a mix of anger and hurt flashing across her features. She had learned to endure small slights, but public humiliation in front of hundreds? That was new. And then, it happened. A waiter, seemingly accidental, dropped a tray of champagne near their table. Glass shattered, liquid spilling across the marble floor. Gasps followed. The crowd's eyes turned toward them, waiting to see their reaction. Marcus knelt to steady Isabella, murmuring, "Ignore it." But she could see the cruel smirk on a nearby guest's face. The deliberate orchestration wasn't lost on her. The far. Tension escalated when a prominent socialite, someone with influence over Marcus's business connections, stood and called across the room. "Is that the maid he's with?" Her voice carried judgment, venom, and amusement. Laughter rippled around the room. Isabella froze. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He could have walked away. He could have ignored it. But he didn't. He stood, voice calm yet resonant, cutting through the music and laughter. "She is not a maid. She is the person I love, and she deserves the same respect I do." Heads turned. Whispers grew louder. Some guests scoffed. Others fell silent, stunned by the audacity. Isabella's hands shook, tears brimming, yet she held his gaze, drawing strength from his courage. She stood, her voice clear, cutting through the murmurs. "And anyone who cannot respect that is not welcome at my table or in my life." The room fell silent. Shock hung in the air like a tangible weight. The man who had orchestrated the humiliation reddened, stammering for words. Other guests shifted uncomfortably, caught between propriety and prejudice. But the final blow came when the event's host, a powerful figure in the hotel industry, approached. "Marcus," he said, voice measured, "this is highly inappropriate. You're making others uncomfortable." Marcus squared his shoulders. "I'm uncomfortable with the idea that love and respect can be questioned because of skin color or status. That is the offense here, not us." The host hesitated. The socialite's smug expression faltered. The room was frozen, watching history in motion. A couple refusing to bend, refusing to cower, refusing to apologize for their love. Then, the unexpected happened. Guests who had quietly observed whispered to each other. A few stood, clapping slowly, at the courage displayed. Others followed, creating a ripple of support that grew louder, stronger, undeniable. The tide began to turn. The couple's bravery had ignited something. Marcus reached for Isabella's hand, their fingers entwined. "No more hiding," he whispered. "This ends tonight." She nodded, tears streaming, but a smile breaking through. Radiant and fierce. And just as they thought the storm was over, the original instigator, the socialite, stepped forward, voice sharp. "You'll regret this. You think defiance will protect you?" Marcus's eyes met hers. They didn't flinch. They didn't retreat. They stood together, unbroken, ready for whatever came next. The room held its breath. This was the turning point. Love had faced hate, and neither would yield. The hotel gala changed everything, not immediately, but in ways that rippled far beyond the gilded walls. For Marcus and Isabella, the days following the confrontation were a mixture of relief and reflection. The immediate storm of whispers and judgment had quieted, replaced by an uneasy calm. Guests who had once sneered now avoided eye contact, uncertain how to respond. Staff whispered less and observed more. And slowly, the tide began to shift. Marcus returned to his corporate world with a renewed sense of purpose. Meetings that had previously been tense now carried a different weight. Some colleagues still resisted, but more began to notice the strength. He radiated the power of standing firm, of refusing to let hate dictate behavior. His employees, inspired by his courage, approached him with support. Their loyalty deepened. It became clear that integrity and resilience could influence even those hardened by wealth and ambition. Isabella, too, experienced change. The gallery she had curated began receiving new attention. Patrons admired her courage as much as her vision. Invitations that had once been withheld came back, but now accompanied by respect, not skepticism. The art world took notice. Her exhibitions were no longer just showcases. They were statements, symbols of defiance against prejudice. Her work, once confined to the quiet halls of galleries, became a beacon of empowerment. Yet the true transformation was quieter, more personal. In the days that followed, the couple navigated strained family dynamics. Isabella's parents had initially recoiled, their fear of judgment coloring their reactions. But after a week of reflection, conversations, and silent observation of their daughter's unwavering stance, cracks appeared in their resistance. A handwritten note, trembling but sincere, arrived at Isabella's door. "We don't understand everything yet, but we see your strength. Please let us try to be better." Marcus received similar gestures from mentors and friends who had previously questioned his personal choices. Their letters, texts, and calls were cautious at first, but gradually acceptance grew. People were seeing that love, authentic, fearless, unapologetic, could demand respect, and in doing so, could inspire change. The ripple extended beyond personal relationships. The hotel, once a stage for humiliation, became a platform for dialogue. Managers held sensitivity workshops, staff were trained in equity and respect. Guests who had once perpetuated subtle prejudice now confronted their assumptions. What had been a moment of shame transformed into an opportunity for education and growth. And for Marcus and Isabella, life settled into a new rhythm, one built not on avoidance, but on resilience. They discovered the power of unity in the face of opposition, the strength of shared resolve, and the quiet victories that often go unnoticed by the world. They traveled together, attended events, and supported each other's ambitions. Yet they never forgot the lessons of that gala night. Every glance, every whisper, every act of judgment served as a reminder. Love was worth the fight. Prejudice was not invincible. Courage, integrity, and mutual respect could change hearts, even when change seemed impossible. Years later, the couple's story became a symbol. Interviews, speeches, and articles recounted their journey, not to celebrate wealth or fame, but to highlight courage and resilience. They visited schools, talked to young people about equality, and mentored others facing discrimination. Marcus often reminded his audiences, "The world will test your love, your patience, your convictions. But standing together, unbroken, is the only way forward." The city itself began to feel different. Spaces once cloaked in subtle prejudice now carried whispers of possibility. People of different backgrounds collaborated, shared stories, and celebrated diversity. The example of Marcus and Isabella proved that the smallest acts of defiance, when paired with unwavering love, could generate monumental change, and for the couple, the journey was never about vengeance. It was about transformation, transforming fear into understanding, silence into voice, and prejudice into reflection. Their story reminded everyone that love is not passive, it is active, courageous, and sometimes revolutionary. As Marcus held Isabella's hand one evening, overlooking the city skyline, he whispered, "We've faced hatred, judgment, and humiliation, but nothing could break us." She smiled, tears glistening, and replied, "Because love is stronger than fear, always." The moral was clear. Courage paired with love can dismantle walls built by hate. Prejudice destroys families, but understanding can heal them. Unity is stronger than division, and love, uncompromising and fearless, is always worth defending. And so, the question lingered, not just for them, but for everyone who heard their story. When faced with fear, prejudice, or hate, will you stand down, or will you stand together?